Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. If you're watching on YouTube, you can find out more about what we do at officehours.global. Our first hour is general discussion about media and virtual production. And our second hour is usually something we want to spend a little bit more time on. And today we're going to talk about voiceovers. We've got Jodi Krangle coming in, as well as our own George Wittam, Mitchell Hill, Bill Davis. All of us have done a lot of voiceovers. So we're going to have a bit of a discussion about that in the second hour. It's a busy panel today. We've got a lot of great people here. Tuesdays tend to be a little bit more packed and tend to be a little bit more audio oriented. So if you've got questions, go ahead and throw those in right now. All right, let's go ahead and jump to the questions. Mitchell, what do we have?
Thanks, Alex. First in from Steve Uroff in Madison, Wisconsin. Mac OS and Windows can monitor NDI feeds with a free download. To do the same on Apple TV requires a $99 app. Any reason the Sienna NDI monitor has that price tag other than the market being willing to bear it?
Good guy.
Yeah, it's a professional tool written by professional folks. You should see the price tag on the full Sienna package. It's over $15,000. So having that one piece is pretty vital. Mark Gilbert is the developer, and I was beta testing that before it launched, and there was a lot of work that went into it. It actually has the ability to do Discovery Server, which is pretty cool. You go into the settings and you can do things like that. The alternative, is something like this $450 encoder that'll do NDI to HDMI. So that's basically what that's doing. There is a new device from BirdDog called the Play that should have shipped a year ago that they've been promising that's in the under $200 range, but it's not shipping. So the alternative is an Apple TV plus that device. And the cool thing is with that app, you can install it on as many Apple TVs as you want. So it makes it a pretty compelling price tag once you factor in the Apple TV plus the software. So I think it's a bargain, because you even think about the PC or a Mac, like you said, you can download NDI tools for free and display. But now how much is that computer? Even a Be Linked by Courtney or a Melee, you're still in that same price tag. So it just depends on what you want to do and how stable you want it to be. The Apple TV is pretty dang stable. Yeah,
A lot of us put these Apple TVs, just Velcro them to the back of monitors and so on and so forth to just send the feeds to them. We haven't used Sienna as much, but for a lot of other things, and it's just a really inexpensive way to get video to a monitor. Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, what you guys said covered most of it. It's a professional app, and of course, you can only get it in the Apple Store for iOS, so they get to get their 30%. So that's why it's a little bit higher than other apps.
Good, Peter.
Well, I use it more as I proved its value as a diagnostic tool the other night working with Mickey. We were trying to get NDI audio out of the new ISO Zoom ISO, and it wasn't coming across. And I was questioning whether or not I had managed to hose up my Mac somehow. But when I moved it to the Sienna application on my Apple TV, and it still wasn't coming out, I was fairly confident that I hadn't hosed my Mac up, that there was something not working.
Yeah. good as a test. Yeah, absolutely. Let's go to the next question.
It's from David Paskin in Miami, Florida. Has anyone played with Michael's new app, Video Pencil? With the new transparent NDI out, you can actually see what you're drawing on.
Only someone had an answer for this. David?
Well, it's not so much an answer, but it's in my never-ending quest to be more like Alex. I wanted to be able to see what I was drawing on, and his new app makes this possible. So, yeah, okay, you're showing off now. I can see that. So this is what it looks like on my iPad, and now what I'm doing basically is I'm grabbing an NDI feed from my computer. I use eCam, but you can use anything. It's picking that up. And then I can see what's here, and then I can draw on it, and I'm sending that NDI feed out transparently back to my eCam. So now I can basically be like Alex and just see what I'm drawing on, which is really, really sweet.
It's great. Yeah, it's good. I think I'm really excited. I think that Michael's doing a lot of great work in the sense that he just keeps on adding more features to all the things that we want to do with it. And it really, I think, because we're able to talk to him in a similar way that we've had with the Liminal team, is being able to interact with what we need as we build these events. I think it's pretty exciting. So anyway, I think it's going to be great. I do have the beta. I just haven't had time to sit down and get the NDI working. So anyway, we'll see how that goes. Next question.
From Tim Home in San Lorenzo, California. Tim asks, is it possible to reset an ATEM Mini to factory new?
John?
It is. If you hold down the mic 1 button while you plug it in, it will go into a state which allows you to do a factory reset with the software while it's plugged into your PC.
Mic 1 button?
Yep, while you're booting it up. And
which mic 1? There's a bunch of buttons there. The on button above so
mic
the upper
1.
corner, the most upper left button, you hold down while it's resetting.
Well, so you unplug it, hold it down, plug it back in, and then it'll go into a state which will allow you to reinstall the software via the setup app. And I'll post a link to a YouTube video.
That's super useful. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, a not quite that clever way to do it is go back to the earliest version for your ATEM, whichever one it is, the one that says, this introduces or adds support for insert your ATEM here, install that version, and then, blow away the firmware.
And Jason, you got some audio glitches there. Go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, I'm also told to be very, very careful doing that because it's possible to brick your ATEM if it loses power while it's in that mode. And by the way, I got my little switch thing that Tom Ferguson recommended.
Yeah, very good.
The reset button. Da-da-da.
There you go. All right, next question.
Next question is from Brody Brazil in San Francisco, California. Just obtained a USB media player that does send audio and video fine through HDMI to a television, but no audio when connected to the ATEM Mini. Any ways to make this work or possibly incompatible?
Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, almost, no, unless there's something unique about the ATEM that I'm sure someone else may know, but almost always when there's issues with audio or video where it works on one device and not another, when you're talking about HDMI is the HDCP copy protection. Rumor has it that some of these HDMI splitters, not necessarily switches, but splitters that one could find on Amazon, some of them, for some reason, don't pass through and honor the HDCP. And so any of those issues, rumor has it, are eliminated if you use one of those things. I've been told that some of the manufacturers will actually list in their details specifically if they do not bypass HDCP. And one might want to go for one of those that does not say that explicitly, and even maybe read the comments to see if anyone was able to, for some reason, bypass HDCP with one of those splitters.
Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, HDCP usually affects the whole signal that comes out, so it's audio and video would be muted. If you're getting video but you're not getting audio into the ATEM, check your ATEM settings, bring up the software panel on the ATEM, and look and see if you have a signal coming in, but it's just not switched to the proper, audio follows video or any of the other settings where you can control the volume, etc. Make sure it's not muted in the software. Also, it could be that your media player is delivering a type of PCM audio over the HDMI that the ATEM doesn't like. It should be just dual channel stereo PCM audio and not 5.1 or Dolby or surround. So check your media player and see if your media player has an audio mode setting and set it to just stereo PCM. That might solve your problem.
Go ahead, Peter.
I was about to say exactly what Courtney said. I can honestly say I spent better part of half a morning fighting an audio problem that didn't exist. All I had to do was turn it on at the ATEM.
Yeah, and you should still hear audio if it's in 5.1. It'll just sound like right and left is weak because when someone's talking, if you hear basically, if you hear reverb, but you don't hear the person talking, then that typically is a 5.1 being interpreted as stereo because what it's doing is it's not hearing the center channel, because in film, your music will sound fine, but in film, they'll typically take the person and stick them right down the center channel, which is channel 3 or usually channel 3. And so that's something to take into account as well. Go ahead, Courtney.
One thing I forgot to mention too is check on your USB media player that it doesn't have, if it has an analog output, if it has a headphone out or a little mini jack, it may be sending audio out that port instead of down the HDMI. And usually it'll switch between those two and won't be on both.
Next question.
Our friend Michael Forrest from London, UK asks NDI users, is it normal to disable certain network interfaces on your Mac to get NDI to work reliable?
Good guy.
Yeah, he's probably having issues with Wi-Fi being on. NDI will go over Wi-Fi. It'll try to traverse that. Depending on the Mac, how your system preferences are set up in your network settings, there is a sort order, and it will honor that. So it will travel over Wi-Fi if you have that as your first setup. A lot of us that are doing this will turn off Wi-Fi completely. We'll also use a separate Ethernet NIC so that we're able to designate it that one. If you still have problems, there is ways in terminal to use a firewall to say don't go over these ports. So NDI uses specific ports to go over. The most common way to solve this is just have an appropriate switch with an NDI network VLAN that's segmented out specifically for NDI. That's how the pros do it. We keep everything segmented off so we don't have NDI going on down lines that we don't want it to go down. So that's the answer. But I realize he's trying to write an app for consumers. So I would say to try testing out making Wi-Fi the second, change the sort order. There's a way to drag and drop those around in the network prefs and see if that helps.
Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, Guy pretty much nailed it. It's just set service order. Once you have that dialed in, you should be good to go.
Next question.
Douglas Carmichael asked, has anyone ever used DMX-controlled lighting in the home? I've seen an open source project. There's a link to it. It's controlling Philip Hue lights via ArtNet, but the update rate is limited to 10 updates per second and one bulb at a time.
Yeah, I think that it'd be the cabling to do this, and the fact that not a lot of lights. You need the light to be a DMX controllable light. It is an interesting idea, but I think that there's people. I think you do have to be pretty serious about it if you're going to control the lights in your house with a DMX. Although it does sound like a really, really fun project. Mix that with a lot of control over your audio, you could really have a great haunted house. Next question. Since we're thinking about Halloween. Next question.
Paul Valhus in Austin, Texas. It's easy to migrate all your passwords in LastPass to 1Password, but how do you keep them in sync and manage them on an ongoing basis? Is 1Password more Mac-centric, and is LastPass more partial to PCs?
Go, Jeff.
Yeah, the first answer is yes. It is easy to migrate them from either one to either one. The second answer is don't do that. Don't use both. Don't try and keep them in sync. They're both good. They're both cross-platform, Mac, PC, and mobile. They both work great on all of those platforms. There's no way that I'm aware of, nor would either of the companies be motivated to keep them in sync with one another. So, and there's no reason I can think of to do so again. So pick one. And let me also point out with this question that if this is motivated by the last breach that we may have heard of in the news with LastPass, don't migrate because of that. That's simply the way encryption works. Apparently some folks got access to the technical development environment, but it really doesn't matter. I mean, even if hackers got access to the whole program, the whole reason this is a thing is because your passwords are encrypted. So that's the point, is the hackers could have your whole password file, but it's encrypted, so they can't get into it. They can't do anything with it. So there's no evidence to believe that anyone has access remotely to anything having to do with your passwords in LastPass. You're safe. Stay where you are if you like it.
And go, Jason.
Yeah, Jeff nailed it. Paul, I love you, and I know you're a tinkerer. Password managers are not microphones. You want exactly one of them, just one of them. Don't mess with more than one of them. And yeah, the LastPass breach wasn't even a breach to user data. It was just a rogue developer account.
it's kind of chaos to have a lot of password managers. And so I use LastPass because I got into it really early and it had features that 1Password didn't have. And I haven't been able to unwrap that because it's so embedded into all of my devices that it would take too long for me to change it, which is, I think, part of the business model. Next question.
Tim Hom in San Lorenzo, California. Is there a way to delay video in OBS? I have about a 1-second audio delay that is coming through a Roland VR50 HD. The mic is plugged into the camera, then it all goes into the Hylian transmitter. And yes, the video does get there first.
Go, Jason.
You can, but you really shouldn't. I believe OBS natively does have a video delay plugin, but I would delay my audio to do whatever is necessary to catch up with video before ever touching video. It's way too intensive.
You got to figure out what's wrong with when video is ahead of audio, something's horribly wrong. Like, you just have to really look at what that is, and dig into when that happens, something really is broken in your pipeline, and you have to fix what's broken, not just patch over what is there, and replace anything. Like, start taking things out, take the Holyland out, take the other things out. The Holyland should work fine. We've seen this work fine, but there could be some kind of problem. It might need a firmware update. It might need something else, but it is very expensive to delay video well. And this is a signal to you that there is something very wrong with your pipeline. So that should never happen, just because of the way that the physics of processing all of this stuff. So I would highly recommend tearing everything apart and putting it back together to figure out why it's out of sync, especially by a second. Next question.
Tommy Shantz in St. Paul, Minnesota. Tommy asks, what would some causes for not being able to connect to an XR18 via Ethernet? I had an instance of a misplaced router switch and was not able to connect with my laptop to someone else's mixer. I had no issues with my own.
Go, Jason.
This is almost certainly a subnetting problem. They set up their XR18 to be on a different subnet, or to use a different IP address, or to be in a different octet, and didn't tell you. Either that or you did. One way or the other, that's the issue.
Next question.
Next question in from Vincent Alvarez in Bellingham, Washington. Just got my first pair of computer glasses. Don't care for them that so much. I may need to get a pair solely for the PC, not a combo lens. How are my fellow older office hour folks dealing with focusing to their computer screen?
Go, Jeff.
I would say, of course, everyone's vision is different, and how bad your vision is for up close, far away. And what I've done, I guess being in that crowd, is the majority of my time is spent in front of a computer screen. So I just went to my eye doctor and said, literally measured the distance between where I sit and my monitor. And then I said, give me my prescription optimized for this distance. Everything else, I'm lucky enough that everything else isn't so bad that I can drive and everything else. And it's not perfect. What is perfect is the thing I spend the majority of my time on, which is the distance to the computer screen. And everything else kind of works out for me.
Good, Peter.
So I just put my glasses on, which in theory are designed for me to read my computer, but they're really distance glasses at the top and flat lenses, essentially non-correcting lenses in the bottom. And they're good when I'm sitting at my laptop when I was going into the office and working, because the screen was down this way and I could still look across down the conference table and everything worked. But I'm with Jeff there, which is go to your eye doctor, have the conversation, because everyone is distance. And when I'm at home, I actually don't have to wear my glasses to see my computer screen because it's within the correct distance.
Right. Next question. I'm sorry, Bill. Quick.
Back when I was doing contacts, I had monovision, which meant one contact was different than the other. I found that was really easy for me. So when I had a cataract surgery not many years ago, I had them do the same thing with the implanted lenses. So one of my eyes is perfect for the computer. The other eye is perfect for distance. It works for me beautifully.
Good, Courtney.
Yeah, I had the same problem with Bill with monovision. And when I went to prescription computer glasses, they corrected the monovision back to a singular plane. So that's then the problem. So you have to be a specific distance from the computer monitor to be in focus. So I threw away those prescription glasses and went with the drugstore magnifiers, because now my monovision works again, and my left eye covers me when I'm leaning closer and my right eye covers me when I'm leaning back a little bit. And it works much better with the computer just using the drugstore glasses.
I'm fighting it tooth and nail. Like, that's how I'm dealing with it. I found that if I started switching my glasses, then my eyesight got really bad really fast, and so I don't use anything right now except when I'm doing critical work, and then I put my contacts in and I put some relatively good magnifiers on. So if I'm really needing to pay attention to something, I do it for that moment, but I won't do it the whole time, because I noticed that I was falling off a cliff as soon as I started using them. So I chose to just keep fighting the good fight. Well, eventually I'll lose, but not yet. Next question.
Chris Widener is here from Lafayette, Indiana. My Shure CVG-18BC gooseneck condenser microphone has been a workhorse over the years, but it's starting to show scuffing. Besides a new Shure, any recommendations for a replacement?
Wow. There's so many options. So many. Go ahead, Bill.
Embrace the scuffs. You'll get more money when you go to sell it if it looks like it's been in service for 30 years. People love vintage microphones. So,
sometimes they love them. If you're, it just depends on how much you're willing to spend on your gooseneck. So, the one that's used if you watch like updates from Congress, when they're out there, I think it might be different for the Democrats and Republicans. I'm not sure if they're using the same space, but on the Democratic side, those are Shep's gooseneck, and they sound really good. So anyway, next question.
Next one in from Paul Valhus in Austin, Texas. The iPhone 14 series comes with a USB-C charger, but no brick. What are some options for charging bricks, and what specs?
Go, George.
I just recently got this. Can you guys hear me okay?
Can hear you just fine.
Okay, great. I just recently got an Anker USB-C GAN charger, 30 watts. That is the same size as the original iPhone charger. I mean, literally the same exact size. And it outputs 30 watts, and it will charge a MacBook, my MacBook Air M1, which is mind-boggling for something that tiny. So if you want something to toss in your bag that's really tiny, even has the folding plug on the end, no problem. It'll charge any iOS device, including even MacBook M1 series laptops.
Go, Jason.
GaN stands for gallium nitride, and it is a much smaller way to do the inversion necessary for AC to DC. Anything, just so you know, over 20 watts, and you're just burning power. It's not going to charge your iPhone any more quickly. However, if you also want to be able to, charge a MacBook Pro, feel free. Get a higher wattage.
Good, Bill.
yeah, exactly. The MacBook Pro specification is 20 watts, and that's what the Apple chargers do. You're more than happy to go above that, but you're not going to get anything extra.
20 watts is for the iOS devices, right? Not for
right.
the laptops.
Right. For the iPhone 14 specifically, their charger that Apple sells is 20 watts.
Yeah, you don't want Apple to send those bricks to you because they're worthless. I mean, they're so not powerful, and so they're just trash. When they sent them to us, the first thing I did is just found a place to put them because I was never going to use them because it's so inefficient from a size perspective that you should never use those things. And so it was fine for them to stop sending them to us. I use the HyperJuice GAN. It's a 100-watt USB-C. It's not that you're going to get 100 watts out of it for your phone, but it's got two USB-Cs and two USB-As. And it's small, folds out, pops into my backpack. I've got a couple different GAN, but you definitely want to move to the GANs. And the nice thing about it is that if you have a smaller one, when you talk about it will charge. The smaller ones will charge your MacBook Pro or your Air or whatever, but it won't keep up with Zoom, which I found during one of my trips to LA when you're in the hotel, is that the smaller chargers can't keep up with how much processing power it's working on. So if you get one of these GANs that have a higher wattage than even what ships with the laptop, it's a lot easier to make sure that it A, charges quickly, and B, stays charged while you're doing heavy workloads.
That was an M1 you said, Alex? computer?
No. My laptop, I haven't bought a laptop for a long time.
It's Intel.
It's an Intel.
Okay,
it's an
that's
Intel
right.
one, so it burns up a little bit. I'm sure that the M1s are probably a lot lesser. I think I bought one in 2020, and I don't need it. I don't need a laptop very often. I need a laptop maybe, once every couple of weeks. so it's not something I use very often. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael asked, judging by the curriculum, what does the panel think of the Internet Marketing Training Center of Virginia? Personally, I want to see data about career outcomes, not solicited testimonials.
Yeah, I mean, I think that all of these, you just have to look at whether they're going to match up with what you need. I don't know. This one could be good. I just don't know whether most of the stuff is available online. And it's just a matter of if you need structure, then going to one of these things makes sense if you have the money for them. But it's just a matter of whether you need structure or not to learn this stuff. If you don't need the structure, then you probably don't need the school. Go ahead, Jason.
My immediate thought is that an unaccredited university, marketing center, just go to a community college and get what you need. It's going to cost you less money, and you can actually earn college credit. So do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the only thing that with that is just really is the person there are some community colleges just want to look at what they have. Like Berkeley has a great graphics program because there's a great teacher there that in the community college. But it's really with a community college, it really comes down to the teacher. So if you have a great teacher in that place, you really have to look at the courses and the course loads and who's going to teach. Because some community colleges have incredible teachers that this is what they believe in, this is what they're interested in. They oftentimes get more freedom at a community college than they would at a university, and so sometimes those programs are just off the charts for the price. And then but
yeah, 100%.
Mileage will vary a lot in a community college. That's the only thing you have to worry about. Go ahead, Bill.
Internet marketing, though, is also such a moving target because the internet keeps developing. In the traditional marketing college programs, they had a curriculum that was pretty fixed because you knew what radio was like, you knew what television was like. In these days where everything is fluid and you have no idea what hot website is going to be the best thing for marketing on your particular vertical, it's just tough. So I would go for people, pretty much supporting what Alex says. It's who you're going to be learning from and whether or not they're keeping their curriculum fresh, because this is a fast changing subject. I
mean, if they have a strong feeder system, what you're looking for is who are they connected to? Who are they supplying? So some of these training organizations are essentially feeder systems for 4, 5, 6 different companies, and they're just feeding students to them all the time because all the companies are trying to kind of figure out how they can pull people in faster. There's a lot of companies that just can't find these resources anymore. They're all out. And so a lot of times they partner with schools, and this happens, and this happens also, like school districts partner with certain schools to create feeders for teachers, and everyone's trying to figure, because then what they do is they work with them on the curriculum. I need you to teach this, and then test this way so that we know whether we can hire these students. And if they have a good solid feeder system that's going into things, it might provide some opportunities. No one outside of that feeder system is going to care about that diploma, but the diplomas are becoming less and less valuable every year. So it's not, the diploma itself doesn't matter. The connections that the school has to certain organizations is something you want to actually study, because if they're feeding them into that system, it becomes particularly useful to get into. Otherwise, the content itself, the content that the YouTubers are putting up about this specific thing, is way more accurate and way more timely than anything a school's going to provide. Next question.
And it's from Matt Wood in Newcastle upon Tyne. Any tips for filming in a setup with a neon sign in the background, which is flooding the exposure of the camera?
Go ahead, Mitchell.
Neon sign. Oh, that thing. I tried a few things. One was to put a dimmer on it, which was disastrous. It flickered and did weird things. The super solution is to put a little ND filter over it. That's knocked down 2 steps right now, the way I have it, and it works fine.
Go ahead, Courtney.
If it's true neon, which is high voltage and has the actual neon tubes in it, not an LED, which a lot of things are these days, you're going to have a problem because you can't really dim them unless the neon sign itself has a transformer with a output level control on it. Do not put the input to that transformer on a dimmer and try and dim it down, because you could blow things up. So the only other way to adjust your settings is to make sure your camera is not set to auto exposure, and pour more light on your subject in the foreground. Your background, if you have a light meter, set the background neon to be about one stop down from your foreground level, and it should look nice and should retain all the color of the neon for the background, but not blow out to a white color. If it's overexposed, it'll become white. It'll basically blow out. You'll lose a lot of the color and the richness of the neon, which is probably what you want to preserve.
Go ahead, David.
Turn it off.
Well, I think part of the thing is to have it there. Like to have it. That's it's part of the show. You can't turn it off. Go ahead, Bill.
So ND filters is what I do. And I always in my jelly roll have 2-stop, 1-stop, and half-stop NDI. So you can pack those on top of each other. So if you really have a very bright sign in the back. Now, it has to be not like David Paskin's round wall hanging. You can't really NDI those, but something like Mitch's on-air sign, you can easily cut a piece of 2-stop and then look at a half-stop with that, look at 1-stop, or 2, 1, and a half, and that might be the right level for you. So it's a way to dial up and down light values without having to resort to any electronic method.
Go ahead, Mitchell, real quick.
Yeah, that's a real neon, and it's 2 stops.
Very good. Yeah, and generally the way we've done it in the past when we've dealt with lights behind it is we just have to get more light on the subject until we can catch up to the background. Next question.
From Douglas Carmichael, could a multiviewer be as useful in a data center environment to save desk space as it is in the media broadcast? I saw a picture of a data center with IBM mainframe consoles on a separate keyboard and display.
And as we get into this question, we're cutting through these questions in record speed, and it's a great panel with a lot of great answers. So if you've got questions you want in the second half of the hour, there's still some room for that. Go ahead, Peter.
Well, the short answer is yes. And the picture, I looked at the picture, that appears to me as a data center that has been retrofitted for multiple consoles, as opposed to somebody thought through the operational design of the data center. Because I mean, back in the late 90s, we were using large flat screens and projection TVs with the multi-viewer systems hooked onto them. So we could literally operate several 100,000 square feet of raised floor with 2 operators, and they could switch between what they needed to look at. Now, what you have to do, to be honest with you, though, is you still have to have the little screens available, because they typically will alarm. The system knows where it's going to alarm to, and the multi-viewers won't actually allow alarm to come through. I mean, an audible alarm, right? They will block the audio part. So you still want to say, oh, that screen just alarmed. I want to put it up on the big screen, or I want to flag it on the multi-viewer somehow.
Go ahead, Jeff.
It really depends what you need to see at all times. The picture that you provided is, of course, the opposite of that, which is a separate screen and keyboard almost for every single one. Usually there's not a need to look at the screen of every single server or whatever it is all the time. So what you typically find in data centers is, for example, rack-mounted keyboard monitors. They're on a KVM switch, so that you just switch to whatever server you want to look at or interact with. And you pull that tray out and it kind of looks like a laptop opening up. And then from a data center, you of course have the ability to remote into any one of them. And now you're interacting with that one on your screen. Usually the only reason to do something like that multi-viewer, because of course each computer server is going to be in a much smaller screen. If it's projected onto a big wall, that usually implies again that there's something that you need to real-time monitor on each one of those servers that you're putting into one of those multi-viewer windows, which again is typically just not the case. Now, if it's for show purposes, like look at our NASA Control Center, then yeah, do that. It'll look cool.
Good, Courtney.
Yeah, and all the major network control centers, here's a picture of AT&T's network control center. It has a huge wraparound video wall with a gigantic multi-viewer that's driving it all, so that they can put up individual smaller images in areas where other operators can see them other than the one that has them on their desk. So that a single operations manager doesn't have to go around from desk to desk to see what's happening in each area of the country. They can look at the big board to see different areas, and that way they can also remap anything. If there's a network outage or a problem that they're working on, they can put it in a big window right in the middle of the room so that everybody can see how their individual consoles are affecting the network outcome. So it's much more versatile in almost all, DirecTV, AT&T, all the network control centers have these big video walls for aggregating all of their consoles into a single place.
And if I could just point out real quick, especially with that AT&T one, the picture we just saw, that's for show. That's when they bring in clients, because I've had a room like that. It's purely for the purposes of showing how cool our data center is and how high tech it is. Those things are typically not practical because you're going to get alerts and alarms on something that's important, and you're going to bring it up on someone's monitor to actually do something important. The big room, the big screens, all that stuff is for show. And if that's relevant, then do it.
Next question.
Next one in from Paul Valhus in Austin, Texas. Amazon's Astro household robot, $999, is by invitation only. Has anyone received an invite? Does anyone have one? Does anyone want one? What is the use case?
Go ahead, Courtney.
I don't have one because I have a vertically oriented townhome that it would have trouble getting up and down the stairs. Plus, it needs to be accompanied by a little Roomba that clears a path for it as it travels around and moves stuff out of the way. Because in my house, it would have to be picking up, things that are scattered on the floor, magazines, things that have been discarded, moving the furniture out of the way for it. And I'm not sure what the practical application is, and I have not received an invite because it would be a minefield here.
Go ahead, Mitchell.
Yeah, I don't know if I've gotten an invite because my dog doesn't want it, and if he did see the invite, he would intercept it and chew it to shreds. As far as the device goes, it's kind of interesting. It looks like it'll wander around the house and videotape or show images of what's going on in those rooms, which could be dangerous. It's also a security bot in that it'll intercept people at the front door, possibly barking at them in some kind of annoying robot voice. So if you need that kind of companionship, I'd rather take the money. The money would be much more companionable.
Go ahead, David.
I don't have an invite, and I don't want an invite because I think this is just silly. I was watching the launch of this thing at the Amazon event, and all I could think to myself when it comes up to the intruder and is taking a video is, why is the intruder standing there letting it take a video of it? Hit it with a bat or something. I mean, it's just, I don't understand it at all.
Go ahead, Bill.
I love Courtney's concept. So your robot now needs a robot. So we're on a path to heck.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, let me just give you the other side of those opinions, which is this is the precursor to, what we will have available to us in the future. And it serves the purpose of both getting folks used to having something like this. It's not going to be super useful, but it gets folks used to having it. It gets the public used to having things like this. But more importantly, it will give them data to help iterate and help build the next version of what these things will be, when we have fully autonomous humanoid robot assistants. So, if that's not your thing, that's fine. But there will be really good, valuable use from these things as they keep improving.
Go ahead, Peter.
Well, as long as they allow for it to be a little bit more involved than just taking a picture and let the castle law take effect, where it could actually subdue somebody walking to my house accidentally. I would agree that right now I prefer my 70-pound Airedale as a guard dog as opposed to something roaming around. Like
I don't know if the two of them would get along. Like you put the little robot in there, and the Airedale may end the robot. So
do you remember the for a while they had the what was the 8-ball robot from Star Wars?
Yeah.
I have one of those that rolls around the house, and BB-8. That's it.
Yeah,
I have one of those. George ignores it. George,
Okay,
my dog, ignores
He's
it.
like, no, not a threat. Go ahead, David.
Yeah.
I think Jeff is right that this is not the finished product. This is getting us ready. I do have to say though that, you know, when I was watching the Tesla event and their robot came out, which to me was completely underwhelming. I mean, it couldn't even walk. And you compare that to Boston Dynamics and what they're doing. I feel like these companies need to stop rushing to be first and wait and come up with something that's valuable, that really has some quality to offer before they just throw it out there. And to me, that's what a little bit like this Astro feels like. It's just pre-baked a little bit.
Yeah, I think that the main thing though is it's hard to know where you should go until you've done it. And so a lot of, if you look at, like, for instance, if you look at something like Makana, which we use here, it's an iterative thing. Like, oh yeah, we need to put a button over there. Oh, this would be better. When we first started it, it was kind of useless. But it was, but we, this is a decade ago. It did very, very simple things. And what we didn't do is try to design the whole thing from the ground up. What we did do is start using it in events and then just start, oh, I'm going to add this button. Oh, this would be really good. Oh, this is a behavior we want to continue. Oh, this is, and so the big thing is for the people who buy it now, it's a conversation piece. They have it there. Their friends will be like, oh, and they'll look at it and they'll talk about it. And it's just, they get to be kind of part of that, they get to think, to Jeff's point, they get to think about it. They get to think about what it would be like and give feedback, and they're going to provide feedback most likely whether they want to or not. It's Amazon. And so the, all of those things, of course the Astro makes the purchase of Roomba make a lot more sense, because if you map out the house, it makes it a lot easier for the robot. So there's a bunch of things that kind of all tie together there, and they're all figured it out. This is, we're not going to probably have anything particularly useful for 10 years, but if you don't have human beings interacting with it on a, you'll build a bridge to nowhere, so that's, I think that's the real opportunity here, is to get it out there, get people playing with it and figure it out. But, but early adopters, we're all crazy, because I'll probably get one and run it around the house. And I mean, at some point but it'll be, so I'm getting it so that I can talk about it on MacBreak, that's why I would be getting it. Next question.
George Wittam from Venice, California, and right here on the panel, what is the progress being made on getting reliable internet to the Iranian people that can't be cut off by the government?
Go ahead, Bill.
I don't think much at this point, because they control all the switches and everything else. When you get those authoritarian countries and they just decide not to let people have access, they can be pretty effective now. In the long run, I think the potential for wireless individual telecommunications devices to be configured into mesh networks, basically, so that everybody is a node. And if you inject to one outside the boundaries, then everybody can get it. That may be the long run solution, but I don't think that exists in the real world now. And I think control of those nodes is what it comes down to, and the people don't have them.
Go, George.
Yeah, I mean, I this is close to home. My girlfriend is with family there. She's been there for a month, and communication is just cut off all the time. I just get little spits and spurts from her. What I'm curious about is how capable is it? How possible is it, once there is Starlink over Iran, for the government to actively jam the Starlink communications and also cut that off? I wonder.
It's impossible.
Not really possible.
Yeah.
Okay.
If they mesh it, the question is where is the downlink site? So Starlink is still dependent on downlinks there. So if it can downlink to a country outside, it can mesh that solution. So that's what happened in Starlink is a very important part of the Ukrainian resistance. Because of, and so those things are, we want to keep track of that. Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, I was going to mention Starlink as well as a possibility, but the downlink is a problem. There are new mesh, low Earth orbit satellite networks being put up by other people, and whether they be direct from user to satellite and then the mesh happens in space, whether that's going to work or not, it remains to be seen.
Go, Bill.
Yeah, the same thing. I think as long as the government it is benign, then you've got a situation like Ukraine where they want their people to get information. So they're going to protect the nodes of downlink. In an authoritarian regime, it's quite the opposite. They're looking for people who have those base stations and want to take them out. And so it's a wholly different game.
The question really also is are you trying to provide internet access to an average citizen, or are you trying to get video of what's happening out of the country? So those are two very, very different solutions there. So this has been done before, as far as getting video out. And during the Arab uprisings, there was a lot of technology that was used to make sure that video could get out of Egypt, for instance, in a way that wasn't as traceable. The big thing is that you have to have a point that is you want to build a Wi-Fi mesh network that's going to grab onto the transmissions, because you don't want to necessarily have anybody have individual. You don't want to know where someone is. So if they take this out, you don't want them to know where people are. So you can't cover a whole city, but a couple blocks. And usually a lot of the upset is happening in a couple blocks. And then a lot of times people are wearing something that would be relatively low profile. The things you want to think about is cameras under hats. So ball hats tend to be really, really useful for it, because you can drop a small pen camera. A lot of times you can even take cameras apart and then rebuild their electronics so that they're much more lower profile. Then you run it down the back of the neck, and you want to build a break point right at the collar, so that if they grab their hat and snap it, it'll just drop out of that. And then that goes into some kind of transmitter. I mean, you can use a Teradek, you can use a lot of other things with a MiFi, so that has cellular if they have cellular, or it connects, or you can connect it to a Wi-Fi solution that gets back to this mesh network here. So now you have people that are able to grab that data to some degree. Now, if they want to hold a camera, it's going to look better, but people can be trained to use their head.
It is so dangerous right now that if you have a camera pointing out a window of a car at a security guy, they will point the rifle at you and shoot you.
Yeah.
I saw a picture of this recently.
Yeah. And this was so that's why baseball hats and other things that aren't going to come out. There's so much on the internet as far as grabbing onto cameras, whether they're buttonhole cameras, baseball hats, all kinds of things that are very low profile. If there's a lot of people moving, it's going to be really hard to see you out of a bunch of other people. That mesh network, though, that still this node is transferable. So what you want to do is then you want to microwave it to another location. So that other location is the fall point. Now, you got to be careful about IP. So what you do is you use what some people call a copper insulator, and that's an SDI cable or an HDMI cable. So what it does is by dropping the video from the mesh into something that's video, and then back into a transmission, you've now hidden any kind of IP drawback, and you might do that a couple times with the microwave and or cables to do that. What happens is that if they trace it back and grab the first one, you just pull everything else down. They might be 3 or 4 miles away or 10 miles away from a microwave transmission. As soon as they grab the first one, everything else, that you don't have a connection anymore, and they're at the head, and so then you just tear everything else down and disappear. So that may have been one solution for 10 years ago.
May have been.
It may have been used,
or may or may not have been used at one point.
So that's an example of an approach. It's not exactly but you can get a sense of how you get video out of those, and it's gotten so much easier in the last 10 years. That's 10-year-old approaches to these kinds of problems. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael asks, how can you run a front-facing IEC cable or external power adapter in a rack in the most ergonomic way? The Cisco Catalyst 9200CX compact switches use either an external power adapter, non-PoE models, or a front-facing IEC power inlet, PoE models.
Go ahead, John.
What I typically would do is recess mount the actual switch, and then run the IEC cable into that through your cable management that should be in the side of your rack. You should be good to go from there. You could also get a PoE adapter you can mount to like a tray in the back, and then run an Ethernet cable up to the front. Both would give you great options to power it while being able to close the rack.
Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, those are wonderful ideas. Another tip is to go to monoprice. IEC adapters are incredibly inexpensive. Get one that is the right size, and you'll be doing a lot less of this.
Next question.
Next one in from James Babbitt in San Diego, California. Has anyone on the panel used the new Isotope RX10 to process Zoom audio?
Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, I think the better question is why you need to do that. To my chagrin and Mitch's, and I'm sure many others, we've experimented with all this processing of our audio before it gets to Zoom, and invariably everyone thinks it's better when we turn that stuff off. It turns out that Zoom does an incredibly good job with especially noise reduction. And to give you a quick example, I'm using original sound off, but if I turn original sound on, where it's going to eliminate that, this is now what it sounds like. You may be hearing my fan, which is blasting directly at the microphone. My computer fan is running, but if I turn original sound off, meaning I'm using Zoom's noise reduction only, presumably you hear a big difference. And you're actually reducing its ability to tell the difference when you do the processing before it gets to Zoom.
And go ahead, George.
Yeah, Jeff and I talked about this at length, but Zoom has clearly been doing their homework when it comes to real-time noise reduction. It used to really knock down the fidelity. I don't know, months ago or a couple of years ago, but the fidelity is maintained. That was a great test Jeff did. The fidelity is maintained remarkably well. I think a problem with using RX10 for real-time production is it will invariably introduce quite a bit of latency because that tool isn't designed to be low latency. If you really, really need that low latency and you want to use plugins that are affordable and you know how to do the audio routing in your system, I would look at Bertom Denoiser. Bertom, Bertom. It is an incredibly good multi-band expander noise reduction gadget with extremely low latency. And it's basically honorware. You pay what you want for it, and I love it. It is fantastic. I would try something like that before I use anything like Isotope.
Next question.
Douglas Carmichael asking, how could I get 60 hertz out of my 2017 MacBook Pro? When I attach my MacBook Pro to an LG TV using an HDMI cable at 30 hertz, I notice that the mouse pointer seems to have a bit more lag. Could this be 30 hertz versus 60 hertz?
Go ahead, Guy.
Could be. There's a couple of apps that you can get. The old one, SwitchRes X. There's another one, EasyRes. Just be really careful with these because they are prone to crashing. So I would say get a genuine computer monitor if you can, because these things are just unstable trying to hook up TVs for long periods of time in production, or decimator it. And that way you don't have to worry about it. But I know that's throwing a $300 solution at probably a $300 TV. So I'd say get the monitor.
Go, John.
Make sure you're using HDMI 2.0 adapter from USB-C or a dock that has that capability. That may get you some options there. I'm not familiar with having a limited rate there, but that you're using HDMI 2.0 if you're feeding a 4K monitor.
Go, Jason.
Make sure your LG TV supports 60 hertz. Not all of them do. Yeah.
Courtney?
Yeah, go to the settings. The problem is probably in your TV. The LGs have a standard mode which processes the incoming HDMI video for 24 frame or lower frame rates and generates synthetic frames. So it does a lot of processing. And it has a game mode. So if you go to the settings, go to the picture mode, and you'll see a bunch of options there, and select game mode. And that will put the shortest bit of delay between the HDMI input and the picture on that TV screen. And a lot of TVs have this setting. So look there and see if it's in standard mode, put it in game mode, and that'll reduce the latency.
Next question.
Chris Sabato in Albany, Oregon. I have a PreSonus 1824C that lost 2 channels in 2 days. A small pop, the no audio. What is your thought process and when to repair versus replace equipment?
Go ahead, John.
I will repair if it's medium effort. I will look at what the time is going to cost me and then make a decision whether I should replace a $100 or $200 item when it's going to cost me 8 to 10 hours of my time. It's just not going to add up. When you're looking at what probably happened there is probably some sort of capacitor failed. Typically when I'm hearing a pop like that and then the smell, that comes with that, you're probably looking at a failed capacitor. I would look to understand why that's happening. If you can't trace that down, it's just going to happen again.
Go ahead, George.
My opinion on PreSonus equipment is it's pretty darn prosumer or consumer grade stuff, and it's disposable equipment. Unless you are a tech and you know how to replace components. And like you said, it was probably capacitor. It's probably could be in the power supply side. If you're using gear of that quality and it's mission critical, have another one sitting right behind you, turn around and plug it in, because you need backups. And a lot of us in voiceover, we're going to talk about later, if you're expected to be available within 10 minutes, sometimes happens. You need that level of redundancy in your studio, or you can lose a major, major job. So I think just having backups, but I don't think repairing PreSonus stuff is probably that viable.
Courtney?
This sounds like it could be a ground loop problem. If you have different AC powered equipment that you're running the output of that PreSonus into, check with a voltmeter between the two grounds of those two pieces and see if you see any voltage between the grounds on those two items, because if there's a voltage differential there, anytime you plug an audio input in that has a grounded connector on it, you can fry the output or the input of whatever device it is if there's a problem with a voltage differential between the two grounds. So make sure that if they have polarized plugs on them, make sure they're plugged in the right way, so the ground and so hot and neutral are not reversed on any of your equipment. And troubleshooting ground loops is a black art, and there's probably tons of videos online on how to do it.
Yeah, and what it sounds like you definitely want to do is figure out what's killing those inputs. It's probably not that it's just wearing out. Something that you've changed in the pipeline is causing, if you've lost 2 in 2 days, something is wrong in the pipeline. So you don't want to get a new one until you figure out why the old one is getting fried, because you'll just buy a new one and then fry that one too. So definitely try to figure out what the pipeline, what did you just change? What new device, what new power, something's been added that's frying those inputs. I don't think that they're wearing out. And I do agree that the PreSonus is probably something you'll just buy a new one. Next question.
And it's in from Niels Braune from Karlsruhe, Germany. Does anyone have any experience with tethered drones? It seems like an interesting technology for elevated shots. Think blimps, spider cam. What's holding it back? Noise, stability, weight?
Jason.
The exception of the NFL Skycam, I generally think, yes, I've played with them at trade shows, and I think they're kind of lame. And as a rule, people don't need to think about tangling a tether. So unless you can get the tether fully out of the way, it's just a bad idea.
Good, Bill.
Yeah, it seems to me that the point of a drone is to have freedom to move around. If the problem that you're trying to solve is that the drone isn't stable enough, they're handling that much better with movable cameras and lockable shots and intelligence, rather than some kind of physical connection to the ground. And it seems to me that if the wind's that high, no matter what you're tethered with, you're still going to have an unstable camera up at the end. So I'm not sure you're getting much by tethering something that's designed to float in the air anyway.
Good, Mitchell.
Yeah, just for the record, the Skycam does not have rotors on it. It's being supported by cables that are moved in and out.
Whatever it takes to fix that.
Yeah, but I have some problem.
Oh, there we go. Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, if it's a drone that is held up by anything other than lighter than air gas, it has to deal with the weight of the cable. The weight of the cable for the tether is, gets exponentially higher as you lift it up higher and higher. You have to have more and more power to lift that much weight, which is going to limit the amount of, or the size of the rotors that you're going to need to keep it up, and that's going to increase the noise. So it's kind of a limiting factor. The best way would be some type of balloon that is tethered, and then some type of propeller-driven device on the balloon that stabilizes its position.
Yeah, these are mostly used in security. In security, so basically, the advantage that they have is you can get up relatively high, relatively quickly, without a lot of infrastructure. So you don't have to build a stand for it. So if you want to look at a perimeter. This is what these are mostly used for right now, and they are typically some kind of balloon or blimp that has that. And what happens is that they have stable power. They can last forever. They can be up in hours, or minutes, but really hours. You can take an entire perimeter line and put something up, and they're relatively inexpensive to replace. And so the higher up makes them harder to hit. Those are the kind of things. But that's primarily where these types of systems are going right now. And they're putting them in. Obviously Border Patrol, military installations, or especially military that's moving, as well as they're starting to find a place in parades and other things where they need it. But it's typically a security/government solution. Because the current versions of them are pretty expensive. So, but they're and a lot of them you'll see a 360 camera underneath them, so they can kind of move around and look at what's going on below them. And it's a brave new world. so anyway, so those are the things. That's where those are being mostly used. All right. We're changing subjects. We're very excited. I think that we have a lot of people here that have done voiceover or are doing voiceover. Byron Wagner, Dan Leonard, Jodi Krangle, and Paul Stefano are guests here. So thank you all for coming. And then of course George and Courtney and Bill and Mitchell. And long ago myself have been in the voiceover business as well. Jeff Cohen are in the business or have been in the business of doing this. So this is a really great think tank for talking about voiceover. And I'm gonna I think because we have some new guests here, I kind of want to go through and just ask, how did you get started, and where do you see your what's your bread and butter? Like what do you do on a day-to-day basis? What kind of work is there? And then we'll start jumping into the questions. For the folks that are watching, this is an incredible group of people to ask questions about a voiceover. And for the folks that are new here, that are new to our panel, we'll talk just a little bit, and then we're going to jump into questions because a lot of people have them for you. So stay tuned for that. We'll start with Byron. Byron, how did you get started?
It was an accident, officer. I'll never do it again. I never did anything professionally until I was 8 years old. I got a late start. I started doing magic and ventriloquism for kids' birthday parties. I charged 25 cents and all the ice cream and cake I could eat. My priorities have not changed. And basically what happened was I did Radio Anonymous. I did a board shift at a radio station for a summer job when I was in high school and really liked it. And they had, Ampex tape recorders and Sony C37A condenser microphones. So I very much got into recording. So jumping way forward in time, I ended up becoming a musical recording engineer and record producer. And that's what I did when I came out to California. Along the way, because I love the technical side, I ended up creating one of the first commercial ISDN codecs, which was actually under non-disclosure for Disney. And so many years later, when the bottom dropped out of the economy because of the subprime mortgage meltdown, and I couldn't do any tech startups because I couldn't raise any fundings, I pulled a codec out of storage and dropped an ISDN line into my closet. And I ended up bagging Don LaFontaine, the In a World movie trailer guy's agent. And so I started doing work, doing voiceover. And to jump further ahead, now I end up doing lots of audiobooks, but I still do animation and commercials, and I'm the term of art in the business is I'm a voiceover whore.
Go ahead. That's great. So that and audiobooks are a real. Is it a good business? It's a good steady business, I imagine.
It's astonishing. Audiobooks, basically, there was a fiduciary point. Originally, audiobooks literally were LPs. Before that, there were 78s done of Dylan Thomas way back.
Yeah,
and the audiobook business has now, because of transcending the technology, when iPhones and iPods came out, and you could literally be sitting on a park bench and download a copy of Moby Dick or whatever you wanted as an audiobook, things went nuts. There was no longer inventory. There was no longer, the cost of doing an audiobook dropped significantly,
right,
because of the production cost changes, and a number of other things in the infrastructure changed. But in any case, the audiobook business now has been growing 25% year over year for 12 years. It's gone nuts.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an incredible thing. Cause I know I don't read books anymore. Like, I mean, I listen to books. I read magazines and read things online and so on and so forth, but I listen to books. I don't really think about it another way other than picture books. I look at those ones. Go ahead. Jodi, how did you get started?
Hi. Well, I've been a singer all my life, actually. I grew up with parents who were very musical, so we had sing-along time rather than story time when I was a kid. And so it's always been in the back of my mind that I wanted to work in something that had to do with my voice. And back in 1995, 96, I volunteered my time at the CNIB, which is the Canadian National Institute for the Blind. And I was doing books, magazines onto tape. And really at the time, it was reel-to-reel tape. Many of you will remember that. So yeah, it was fun. And it was interesting that I liked the tech as much as I liked the voicing. So I'm kind of right and left-brained. I like being creative, but I also really enjoy computers and the tech of that kind of thing. So it sat in the back of my mind for a long time. And I did SEO and internet marketing back when the internet was brand new. So I started doing that in 95 and did that for a long time. And then Google became the only game in town. And I got really bored. And things happen when I get bored. So as a focus shift, I decided now was the time to go into voiceovers. And I just kind of decided that was what I was going to do. And it took a while to actually make a decent living, because this is not an easy business to be in as far as that's concerned.
And what makes up most of your business?
I am mostly commercial and corporate narration. So I do that. I do a little bit of on hold. I do, mostly things that are 5 minutes of finished audio or less. So I tend to do the short form rather than the long form that Byron really loves. He can have all mine.
It's too much of a commitment.
It's a lot. Yeah. But I started podcasting not too long ago, November 2019. And I have a podcast that talks about the power of sound and how it influences us in our lives. So
that's fantastic. What's it called?
Audio branding.
Audio branding. Very, very good. Yeah, absolutely.
Actually, that's the cup.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Dan, how did you get started? Whoop, can't hear you, Dan. You're muted. You're muted in Zoom, I think. There we go.
I think you were bleeding through earlier. They Zoom you.
Yeah, we Zoom muted you.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I was told there would be no public speaking, but anyway, no, I started, like a lot of people, talking into a hairbrush when I was a kid. Announcing staff in high school, theater, all those things. Went to Bowling Green State University freshman year to study broadcasting, got a broadcasting degree from Buffalo State College, and spent 12 years in professional radio in on-air, production director, operations manager. So technically, I knew a lot of stuff that, other people who got into voiceover did not know. But I drifted back into insurance, education. I taught for a while. And then in 2002, I found myself at home as a stay-at-home dad, finishing my master's degree, and ended up doing a radio documentary. And I discovered digital recording and editing. And
what do you do now?
And now I do voiceover. I've been doing that, online for the last 20 years. And but because I understood how to record properly, because I understood what a VU meter is, which nobody apparently in the voiceover business does. I had to start answering questions about it, and because I knew the answers, more people started doing it. So my wife says, "Yeah, you're not giving away all those years of experience. Got to put out a shingle as a voiceover home studio expert," and I've been doing that for the last 15 years.
Awesome.
But I also still do voiceover commercials. I'm on contract with Pandora. I do a lot of commercials for them, and corporate narrations and a lot of religious stuff. Anything people will hire me for. But a good deal of my time is spent helping people with their home studios and teaching them how to use the VU meter And I'm also president of the Industry Association of Freelance Voice Talent, worldvoices.org. And we try to show people we're professionals, that we've invested time in our in training to be good voice actors, and the time and equipment into making us sound good.
It's great. It's great. And it's funny as everyone starts to click off like how they pay the bills with their voice, you just see all these niches. There's all these things that voiceovers are needed for, that someone's got to talk about this and say those things. And it's just an amazingly complex market. Paul, how did you get started? Oh, you're muted as well, Paul. Sorry. We might have done that to you.
Yep. There we go. So I started in high school, basically. My voice sounded like this at age 16. And everyone started telling me, you need to go into radio or TV, which is the exact wrong reason to do this. But I didn't listen. I did it anyway. I got a broadcasting degree, like Dan, from Towson State University in Baltimore. And then promptly found there was no work in a huge city like Baltimore, Washington on radio or TV. So I went and did about 20 different jobs over the next 20 years. And then the advent of home studios came. Thanks to people like Dan and George and their show VOBS, I learned that I could do it from home. And after being told by several companies, you should do our phone system, you should do our voicemail because your voice is great, I decided I could probably do it from home, which turned out to be the case. Set up a home studio, and I've been a full-time voice actor now for 6 years.
And so you're doing mostly voice acting?
I do mostly voice acting. I do a little bit of producing as well. I also host a podcast. Everybody's got a podcast, right? I do know what the VU meter is. My podcast is actually called the VO meter, like voiceover meter, play on words.
Nice.
And I do some producing and directing, and I do a lot of live announcing as well. Over the last couple of years, I've picked up 5 different universities I work for as a stadium and arena announcer. So that's where I spend most of my time these days.
Now, do you do that from home?
The stadium and arena announcing?
Yeah.
Oh, that's all on site. So that's one job that I don't think is going to be remote anytime soon, which I'm happy about. I still need to go to the stadium or the arena because people need to hear me in the stadium. I'm basically telling them where the restrooms are and how to get their hot dogs. So that still needs to be live.
We've done that live over Zoom, like where we just run the announcements. Yeah, we've done it for a couple events where we're running the announcements from someone is somewhere completely different and running the announcements into the all the announcements are going into the venue. So that's why I asked. It was just like,
I mean, it is possible, but it's better, I think, live.
The hot dogs are better.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So, and for those watching, I mean, I don't think we're going to get a group like this again together anytime soon. So I would definitely take full advantage of it. Let's go ahead and jump into the questions. First question.
Sure. From Tommy Shantz in St. Paul, Minnesota. What EQ do you apply to get your voice to cut over crowd noise or over a music bed? Are there other FX that you use on a regular basis? And could you give us some examples of those?
And I realize our panelists or our guests don't have the advantage of some of the back end tools that we have here. So just if you're a panelist, just go ahead and just kind of raise your hand a little bit if you want to jump into a question. You're not always on air, so you can just let me know whether it's something you want to answer. Go ahead, George.
Yeah, so this is obviously a deep subject. I have an entire teaching module on this one thing, but a really quick crash course, if I may. Is using, and this is just a very simple EQ that comes on every Apple. It's called AU Filter. And I like it because it is a simple interface that's visual and graphical. And so what I might do sometimes is if it's a male voice, I might add a little bit around 980 to 100 hertz to give it a little more chest fullness if they sound a little bit thin. Let's say if you're in a big room, you might not get that low end bump that you might like to get. So I might add a little bit there. I might roll off the low end if there's rumble or any rumbly low end garbage that the mic's picking up. And all of you with TLM 103s know what I'm talking about. That mic is like a seismograph. And then I might add a little bit of high end lift. Some call it air. If you're a female voice, I might start it up a lot higher. But I might watch out for sibilance. So I might add some there, and then I might take a little bit away in the 5,000 to 8,000 range up here to notch out some sibilance. That's just a really, really simple, basic idea. But those are some examples of what I might do with EQ.
Anyone else? Oh, yeah, go ahead, Byron.
One point that I want to make is if you ask almost anyone in the business, one of the first things that gets drummed into our heads is, raw audio, no EQ, no gating, no compression, no limiting, no nothing. Because if you make a decision at the head end of the contribution process, then in production, it's very hard to undo that. Try undoing compression without knowing what the ratio was or the threshold was. So certainly for anybody doing auditions, okay, maybe a little bit of production or, normalization or whatever, but the great majority of VO people are taught, leave all of the production decisions to the production people who are doing the post. Yeah. So what George is talking about is, in a lot of cases, we do our own production. So for example, if I do a book on ACX, my job is not only to be the narrator and the producer, but also the QC, the editor, and the final vetting or QC, and then mastering. So in that case, then I will make those decisions, but only because I'm the post guy at that point for that project.
Yeah, go ahead, Dan. Oh, you're muted again, Dan. Sorry about that.
There we go. I'm kind of old school. My philosophy is almost everything is physical. It's if you have a good room to record in that is acoustically neutral and sterile, which is not easy to achieve. If you have proper microphone technique and you set your levels right, generally you don't have to do a whole lot. Now I've got a master compressor on my Rodecaster here, which is about all I use. And most of the time people are like, well, how do I make myself sound better? It's like, well, work on your acting ability and your ability to use your mouth and your lungs and your brain to say what you're supposed to do. The idea is to forget that there's a microphone there and be you and be an actor and forget about being an engineer. Not true for people who are engineers and do lots of production and stuff. I produce some podcasts, people who apparently don't understand that there are not supposed to be fire engines behind somebody's voice. Or having a window open on Fifth Avenue or something. But so trying to get your voice above music or trying to set it for somebody else, if you're just doing voiceover, is how you not book work.
Paul, did you have something else to add? I thought I saw you.
I don't think I was raising my hand, but what the heck?
Sorry, I put you on the spot there. No, it's fine. We'll move on.
I'll back up Dan because I've come full circle on this. At one point, I did do a lot of processing of my auditions. I actually had George set up a preset for me to do that. But now I've set everything to be as raw as possible. I had this great booth that is acoustically treated, and I send everything raw with the exception of a high-pass filter. I do run a high-pass filter because this particular mic does not have one. But sometimes if I use a mic that has that built in, I'll just turn that switch on. And then that's the only EQ I do whatsoever.
Yeah. Go, Bill, real quick.
Yeah, Bill.
The last 15 years, I've always delivered a dry and a wet mix just because I never know if the client is going to be doing processing in the post end or if they want something they can literally slap on something for the internet and send out.
Yeah, George, you were going to say something.
One of the biggest compliments I feel like I can get is when someone says, George made me a filter years ago and I don't use it anymore. And the reason I say that is it means that their studio, their skill, their mic, all that stuff has gotten so tuned that they can almost control the compression with their voice. There's an art to it, and they get it. It's all so well tuned that same filter I made 8, 6, 7 years ago. Now it doesn't do a lot of service, and it's great to hear it. And Paul, and I know Dan and I have been buddies for 12, 13 years, but it's like I know that a lot of people need that little pick me up, and so that's where those filters can be helpful. But hopefully you don't need them for the rest of your career.
Mitchell?
Yeah, a lot of radio people tend to like a little processing because they grew up with that on the air that way, but it's been hard for me to wean myself off EQ and compression and things like that because I liked hearing it. Yeah. But to be honest with you, I've sort of gotten out of the habit of doing that. I'd rather have the EQ come from the mic I'm using, like a U87, and a little mic technique if you need it to get a little bass here. But the thing that I do warn against is that people think sometimes that if they want to sound like James Earl Jones, that there's a plug-in or they can EQ the heck out of it to make them sound. It doesn't work that way.
44-1 to 48 will do it. Next question.
Next question from Vincent Alvarez in Bellingham, Washington. Do you do any vocal exercises before a voiceover recording session? And what vocal exercises do you do? Or do you save your voice to keep the lower sound of relaxed vocal cords?
Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, I'd love to start with this because I nearly destroyed my career not doing this. I lost my voice almost entirely. I couldn't do more than 5 minutes at a time about 3 years ago without completely wearing out. So I went to a vocal therapist at Johns Hopkins University. I'm lucky to be near. And they said, what kind of warm-up are you doing? And I said, what do you mean? So they said, well, that's your problem. You need to do some warm-up. So I started doing a routine that they gave me. I do it every morning as a warm-up, and sometimes it's cool down. Start with a straw, which I keep here in my booth. Some straw phonation exercises. I do some arpeggios just up and down. So up the scale. Then I do some me, me, ma, mo, moo. So I just hum as long as I can those notes. Me, me, ma, all the way up the scales. And then I do some bada, bada, badas just to get the lips moving. Some bada, 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 up and down the scales. And by the time I'm done those, that's sufficient enough to keep me warm. And I can go for an hour, 2 hours at a time. I also do a lot of audiobooks. And this therapist at Hopkins basically saved my career.
Yeah, one of the old... go ahead, Dan. Oh, you're muted again. Sorry, Dan. You got to Zoom mute. Oh, still muted, Dan, on the mute on Zoom. There you go.
All right. So yeah, I essentially do what Paul does too. Usually, a little bit of singing background. So I do, do my scales and move my mouth around a little bit, just get it warmed up. But there's it depends on what I'm going to be doing. If it's going to be loud promo work or something like that, I'll just yell at my kids. And that usually does it.
Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, I wondered, I had never heard of the straw technique. Paul, can you tell us how that affects your voice, or why the straw?
It puts pressure on the back of your throat and specifically the vocal folds to strengthen them, basically. It's like a muscle exercise. Your vocal folds are muscles. So it puts pressure on there to not only help strengthen them, but also loosen any phlegm. I mean, it's kind of gross, but it is an issue that comes up with people when they have mucus or phlegm. Clearing your throat is a horrible idea, one of the worst things you can do. So if you use a straw, it puts pressure on the back of the vocal cords, the back of the throat, and it helps to clear all that stuff out.
And you kind of sing through it or push through it? You push different notes through it like a trumpet?
Yeah, singing through it is the classic technique. So if you are a singer, which I'm not a great one, I would recommend singing. And it just narrows the pathway to put the pressure back there to, again, do the muscle exercising.
It's really interesting. Go ahead, Byron.
So I'm guilty of not warming up. But I typically don't start my work until fairly late in the day, like 11 in the morning or sometimes 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So that solves the problem for me in a kind of a natural way. But I do agree that warming up is a great idea. Because you guys like gadgets, so I've heard, recently there's been some interesting chatter on the Facebook about using clinically approved tools for strengthening and improving your lung capacity, which is certainly very helpful. And typically it's done for people who have certain kind of impairments or diseases or whatever. And I now feel guilty because of what Paul just said. But one of the things I noticed is there are a bunch of proprietary tools out there that will let you restrict the airflow and then gradually adjust the resistance separately on inhale and exhale. They typically go for around $60. I just, because I like doing this kind of stuff, looked around Amazon and found a knockoff coming out of the same factory because other than the color of the plastic, it's exactly the same device. This actually has adjustment dials.
And what's it called?
This one, the knockoff's name is Hetaru, Hetaru.
What's the device called?
The main device is called Breathe. Okay. So if you Google Breathe or go on Amazon, look at Breathe, it's about $60. Yeah. And it is precisely the same device, which it basically has two valves, one for inhaling and one for exhaling, so you can adjust the parameters individually. This is quite interesting. And so I've begun playing with this. And there's a lot of testimony. There's an app for your iPhone and for Android. There's a full-blown website. And, of course, the knockoff works as well as the original, he said guiltily.
That's great. The only one that I brought from stage, I used to be a stage actor a long time ago, and we used to put a cork in our mouth, and we would go 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we do it all the way up to 10. And it just sizzles your enunciation. Like it just really, because it just got your teeth apart. I now do it. Mine looks much sillier, which I will not do on the show, but I often don't have a cork, so I just stick my tongue out as far as I possibly can and do the exact same thing. So it looks totally absurd.
Well, the classic goes back 1,000 years. Eratosthenes putting pebbles in his mouth.
Exactly, and it really for me, before every voiceover, I mean every time I do it, that's the first thing that I do, and then I usually go at it. So anyway, and if I take a break, I'll do it again. Because it only lasts a couple minutes. For me, anyway. I mean, it'll last like 10, 20 minutes. And then after that, I have to do it again to really pull it apart again. Next question.
Next question in from Eric Billings in Washington, D.C. Should voice artists start archiving reference sets of their own voice to prepare for AI-driven productions to future-proof their income against age or accidents?
Go ahead, Dan.
Jodi will then, come around and slap me around a little bit. AI has its place. It's going to happen. It's going to replace some of the low-end, low-paying stuff that's out there. It's going to do the IVRs and perhaps compliance videos for insurance companies if you've ever watched those. Things along those lines. So should people be stockpiling their voice for other people to make money off you and not compensate you fairly? That's a tough question. I know Jodi is working to get this so people can be contracted and be compensated fairly for this sort of thing. But it's at the continuous dehumanization of the human race. And, those of us in the voiceover business, we're concerned about it. They keep saying, oh, it's getting better. Unfortunately, I believe no matter what, no matter how hard they try, there's not a computer, especially with me, that can emulate what goes on in the human mind and the thousands of choices that I can make when I see a line of copy. But if kids today are, they're used to hearing that type of stuff, a monotone voice that has a patterned breath every 5 words and all the other things that they throw in there, I think that, if you want to prepare for the future, go ahead and do that, but it's not going to help your career at all.
Jodi, you have something I'm sure Jodi's going to have something to say about that. Go ahead, Jodi.
Well, I just want to say that we do need to be careful. Yes, definitely. If you want to make a voice match, like a synthetic voice of your own, I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that. Preserve your voice as it sounds in that moment. I think that's a really good thing to do, actually. It depends on where you end up using that, and it depends on who you end up letting to use that. So there are definitely initiatives right now. I'm working with the Open Voice Network, which is Linux funded and part of a ethical synthetic voice study, basically, where they are looking into doing this on an ethical basis. And we've worked out contracts that are win-win for both the software engineers and the voiceover people. There needs to be repercussions for people who are bad actors in this scenario. And once we have those worked out, then there should be more protections in place, and there will be provisions allowed for people to prosecute if they need to. And we've already had one of those happen, actually. Bev Standing, a colleague of mine and a friend, had her voice used on TikTok without her say-so, and she took them to court and she won. So this is already happening, and we do need to be careful, but at the same time, we can't bury our heads in the sand and think it's going to go away, because it's not.
Yeah, go ahead, Byron.
So this is a giant hornet's nest, Pandora's box. People in the voiceover industry who are not particularly technically knowledgeable are terrified and reacting and overreacting very violently. My 2-second point about this question is, I have survived the transitions from analog to digital in audio and video. I'm dealing with ATM machines. So there are lots of places where technology has been very disruptive. But my experience is that what happens, desktop publishing, the first thing that happens is everyone starts making correspondence that looks like ransom notes because they can use 17 different typefaces in the same document.
Called Ray Gun.
Right. And
They made a whole magazine of that.
yes. So, but what eventually happens that's interesting is the overall level of expertise and understanding goes up. Because now, in order for him to do a good job, your secretary, if you still have one, needs to not only understand how to change the balls in an IBM Selectric to get different fonts, they start learning about kerning and, type color and layout and composition. So all of a sudden, if it doesn't look like it came out of maybe not a typesetting shop that charges $125 a page. But anyway, if it doesn't start looking good, then you have problems. So the bottom line is, yes, I can still go to the grocery store and buy a mass-produced loaf of sandwich bread, or I will happily pay $7 or $8, thank you, inflation, for an artisanal loaf of bread. The one other point I wanted to say about this, so there's two things. The technology is hugely in flux. It's very immature. So to make arbitrarily a bunch of recordings in the blind doesn't work very well. Using the tool for what is invariably a proprietary platform means that you're going to have to do it over again in a few years as the algorithms get better, because they'll change the models. So the point that people in the industry are starting to get to is, instead of locking ourselves into proprietary things that are owned by a single vendor and possibly onerous contract terms, eventually there will be some standards, I think, and there will be the ability to use that as a tool for certain things that are kind of, as Dan points out, the low end of the spectrum. But the last thing I want to mention is, in 1992, when I was working on what became the first commercial ISDN codec at Disney under non-disclosure, I heard the rumor, I was there in 1992, Sterling Holloway had just died. Sterling Holloway is the beloved, voice of Winnie the Pooh, among others. And I heard the rumor, I haven't absolutely verified it, that Sterling Holloway, up until his death, was coming in on a weekly basis and recording the words in the dictionary. Now, obviously, 1992 technology, it's much simpler to simply get Jim Cummings to do Pooh now, and that's what they're doing. But the precedent is there, and the model has been kind of set.
It's really interesting. I love the concept of bread, because it hits for me, because I really am picky about bread. So I find that most bread, even the bread that's supposed to be artisanal, there's like one group in all of Northern California that I'll buy bread from, and it's very specific. And so it's just an interesting. There's a richness to that analog that you just can't reproduce even in a factory in the physical world, that you just don't get it. It's just really hard to get just right. So it's really, really interesting metaphor. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I do have a synthetic version of my voice right now. I call him AI Paul, and it's available for hire. It doesn't get a lot of work. I don't even know if I should refer to it as it, he, or she. There's a whole pronouns thing. Where we go with that is yet to be determined, but I'll go with he. Hasn't gotten a whole lot of work, but mostly because of the reasons mentioned in the question. I wanted to be prepared. I was an Eagle Scout. I don't like to be blindsided by things. So I recorded thousands and thousands of sentences just so I would have the voice created in case I needed it at some point.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Yeah, actors, I know that for the last 15 years have been scanning themselves, at different ages, specifically so that they'd be able to license themselves. So these are the A-level actors. It's a pretty expensive scan, but they've been doing that, and really came after the Matrix. After they started seeing models built from digital doubles, that became something that a lot of really heavy-duty actors did, because they wanted to be able to go back, license their younger self for a movie, or be able to have their estate continue to generate revenue from them after they've gone. So it's just an interesting puzzle. Next question.
Next question in from Dave Brady in New York, New York. I've been told I have a voice and face for radio. At this late in the game, would trying to get into the VO be worth it, if only for supplemental income? How can I shake the Noo Yawk and Long Land rest accent?
Anybody have any input for that? Go ahead. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah. If you're just trying to get into voiceover, there is a tremendous amount of competition out there right now. If you're older, it certainly does narrow down your, what it is that you can do, because you're not going to be able to do millennial speak or anything like that. But being told you have a great voice is not the qualification for being a voice actor. It's voice acting, and you've got to be able to have the.
He's got a really good voice.
Oh, yeah, okay.
It's like, yeah. Like just you know, like it's.
But what's a great voice? I mean, Gilbert Gottfried, may he rest in peace, had a very bizarre voice, but he did very well with it. And you will find that there are a lot of unusual voices out there that are doing, at least that you see on commercials. If you have a face for radio, as I always like to say, no one needs to see how the sausage is made.
Yeah.
So
you're good, Mitchell.
Yeah, I think, David, we all know you. We love you. I have a lot of people ask me, hey, I got a great voice. And as like Dan just said, practice. That's the only thing that's going to get you into a professional world of doing it.
Everything I've done up until now. Go ahead, Jodi.
I just want to mention that there's also a website out there that people might find really, really helpful if they're thinking of getting into voiceover. It's called Voiceover Extra, Voiceover XTRA. So if you look at that website, also has articles and columns by coaches and people who are in the business, and you can look at all the genres you could possibly work in. You could also do really inexpensive workshops and see how the business actually functions. So you can try out different types of genres that you might want to try. They do have on occasion people that talk about lessening accents and things like that. So if you go and check that website, there might be some previous workshops that they did that you could look at, and possibly there might be some coming up that you could participate in. And they're fairly inexpensive. They're like, I think $50 to $90 or something a piece. So because it's a group setting. Right. So you could definitely check out that. I think there's a place of voice for everybody. And if you really are passionate about it and you want to do it, go for it. There's nothing that should stop you, other than yourself.
Right. Yeah, go ahead, Byron.
There is a website. The domain is iwanttobeavoiceactor.com. It's a website by D. Bradley Baker, and it's excellent because he put it together because he was tired of answering this question over and over again. It's very helpful. iwanttobeavoiceactor.com.
I also, go ahead, Paul.
I just wanted to address the accent reduction question, portion of that question. I would say don't do that to an extent. If you're going to do lots of character work, obviously you'll have to learn different accents, and there are ways to reduce that. There are coaches specific to accent reduction. But the trend right now in casting is authenticity, whether it be by race, by gender, or non-gender conformity, but specifically to regional accents as well. So if you have a good New York accent, just milk that baby for all it's worth and work the New York market.
I sneak into as hit. There's a thing called Hit Record from Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and they put out little challenges. You actually get paid from those. Like, I didn't know that you get paid. I just did them for fun. Under a pseudonym. I just go in there and just do character voices because it's something fun to do on a Sunday afternoon, and I'll just take some of the challenges and throw them in. And then they started sending me checks. I was like, okay, that sounds good. It's fine. But I was just doing it just to have a fun Sunday afternoon. Anyway, next question.
David Troutman from Edmonton, California. Or Canada, I don't know which. How comfortable are you when a possible client wants to audition a whole lot of people?
Go ahead, Mitchell.
Get used to it, because that's the beginning of your road to tears.
And there we go. Next question. Oh,
next
you're going to say
question.
something, Dan? Dan, you're going to say something.
Yeah, no, just a quick point that generally we don't know who's auditioning. It's not a live casting room where you're sitting there and staring at other people who are trying to audition for the same job.
Yeah,
it's all very, very anonymous, and your voice goes out into the ether, and you have no idea. So the idea is, if you're going to be in an Arthur or auditioning for an Arthur Miller play for 3 minutes, you get to be in an Arthur Miller play and give it everything you got, and not worry about other people.
Yeah, go ahead, Jodi.
That is Edmonton, Canada, by the way. What I would say is that the choosing of a voice for a campaign or whatever it is you're auditioning for is very subjective. It really is. Right. It's whatever someone has in their head when they were writing that script or thinking of the spot or whatever they're producing. And you have just as much of a chance of getting that job as anyone else that's in that what might be called a cattle call. So you never know. Right. Do it and see what happens. Just do your best. Have fun doing the audition. Just do it and forget it. That's the idea. You can't let it bog you down when you're doing other stuff. You just have to do it and forget it and move on.
Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
The fun thing about voiceover, for me at least, is that because it's a relatively small community of people who do it professionally every day, I almost every day will hear a commercial that I auditioned for done by one of my friends, whether it's radio, TV, or internet. And that could be actually kind of fun. So instead of saying, oh man, I can't believe I didn't get that campaign, I'll say, oh man, that's Jodi. That's awesome. I'm so happy for her. So oftentimes that's how it works out, where you'll hear that campaign somewhere and you'll think, oh, I'm so glad Dan got that. I'm happy for him.
Yeah, it's so subjective too, because it's just, I know that when we are pulling in voiceover talent for projects that I work on, we'll go through 50 to 100 different, demo reels, and then we'll go down and then we'll hand the client 4 to 8, and then they'll pick one. And that's how quickly it, and it all happens in a couple of days usually. And sometimes we'll get a couple of them, we'll hire them all to do the voiceover, and then we'll figure out which one makes the most sense. And so there's just a whole lot of, it depends on how big the campaign is, but that's a lot of the pattern that we have there. Go ahead, George. Oh, sorry. I'm on the next question. Sorry.
Yeah, Marty Atias.
Yep.
Marty Atias in Maryland asked, with so many processing tools available today, how important are the acoustics of your voiceover room?
Go ahead, George.
Oh boy,
George.
Talk about in my wheelhouse. It is still incredibly important. We don't have the technology yet to subtract the room out of the recording completely. There are de-reverb processors, and there are some tools out there that are attempting to do so. But at the end of the day, a lot of what makes all of us sound the way we sound is the attention we put into our environment. And if you're a video person, think of it this way: the acoustics is your lighting. So if you want good video, you need good lighting, period.
Right.
If you want good audio, you need good acoustics. So yeah, it's incredibly important. The detail that we put into spaces can be quite remarkable. Here's a studio. Here's my gallery on my website. This is just one of many studios, but I mean, there's a lot of attention that goes into the acoustic treatment of that space. This is the inside of a studio brick booth. This is a larger production space. We put a lot of attention into how that room is going to sound when you speak into your microphone, at what volume you speak into your microphone, at how far away you speak from your microphone. All of it is really important.
You go, Dan.
Yeah, there's a huge misconception amongst a lot of people, especially people starting in voiceover, about putting up soundproof foam. And the fact of the matter is, there's no such thing as soundproof foam. There's a difference between soundproofing and sound treatment. One is to prevent reflection back to your microphone, and the other is to prevent sound from coming into the space that you're recording. And one is much harder than the other in a home studio, because people can sound great in their closet, except so does the air conditioner from their neighbor.
We have one room in the building that I work in that's floated, and it's just, you walk in and it's like just a breath of fresh air. It's just super quiet. You can't even, it's just hard to even put your head around like how nice and quiet it sounds. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, I wanted to add, don't forget, one of the most important things is the sound from inside your house or office, wherever you're recording. I actually live in Maryland, so to the poster's question, good luck. But I found like the noisiest part of my area was inside the house, because I had 3 kids that were under 10, a dog, right, a wife, and lots of things going on inside the house. So a lot of my friends said, well, you're doing it wrong. You need to lock the kids in the booth and then work outside in the kitchen, which always got a chuckle. But remember, the noises from inside the house, like Dan was mentioning with the air conditioner or the heater, depending on where you live, that can be as troublesome as noise from the outside.
Yeah, go ahead, Bill, real quick.
I started out in the days when you had to go to a studio to do things. And the advantage of that was the people who got the work were the people who had the schedule availability, be able to take Tuesday at 2:00 and show up in a building to do it. If you don't have some kind of controlled space, an audio booth, a voice booth, or something like that, you're at risk of, if they're doing a jackhammer outside, you're shut down for a little while. And if that's when they want to book the session, then you become less available than your competition. That's not a good thing.
Next question.
Next question in from James Babbitt in San Diego, California. When narrating an audiobook, is there someone monitoring the recording for correct pronunciation and accuracy?
Go ahead, Jeff. And then we'll go to Byron. Oh, can't hear you, Jeff.
Can't hear you, your enunciation is great.
Your sync is amazing. Jeff can't hear you. Go ahead. We'll jump to Byron while Jeff works on his tech there.
It has shifted dramatically over the last 12 years. Originally, Penguin Random House's very, very hard line was, we will only do audiobooks in our studios with our directors and our producer engineers, or sometimes they're different people. Then after a couple of years, they admitted that some people were allowed to work in their home studios. And now, because of things like ACX, which is a marketplace that puts together content owners and, quote, producers, typically narrators, it's changed hugely. So now what typically happens is called self-direct, especially for the independents. So there's this continuum. If you're working for a major publisher and it's a reasonable budget for a title, it will still be done the old school way. And there will be multiple people who have multiple responsibilities. And in fact, even the style of recording is called open record, or the British call it fluff and repeat, where you're speaking, and if you make a mistake, you go back and redo it, but you keep going, and it's a continuous linear recording like it used to be in the days of reel-to-reel. Self-directing means that you typically use punch and roll, which is much like I used to do when I was recording music, which is you listen to the performance so far, drop into record, and then now automatically, thank the Lord, punch out before you move, mess up anything else, or you plan on redoing the stuff further down the line. So the simple answer to your question 10 minutes ago is the great majority of audiobooks now are self-directed, and there is no one directing your performance. You need to do it yourself, and it's an extremely valuable skill.
Which means you need to be a lot better at what you do.
Yes.
Right. It's not, this is a much more, you're not just sitting there and someone's telling you what to do. You have to understand what the producer needs out of your performance.
And unfortunately, the downside of that is some people try and do some kind of vetting or engineering while they're recording, which Dan and I and possibly George will greatly disagree with. In other words, wearing headphones when you record, which means that half of your brain is going, wait, was there a mouth click there? Should I stop and redo that? And so on, as opposed to being connected to the material and doing the best performance that you can. So the answer is yes, it's still done both ways, but the massive quantitative shift has been to self-direction because it costs less money.
Next question. Oh, go ahead, Paul, real quick before we go.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, it seems to me there is a growing pendulum shift a bit the other way too, now that IP technology has gotten better. So I do a lot of actual directing and remote recording of audiobook narrators, where I'm recording in my booth or in my studio and producing over something like Zoom or IPDTL or Source Connect. And I do all the remote engineering just like I was booth directing live, but remotely, now that the technology has gotten more solid where it is possible to do that remotely. So I think that is going to shift again in the near future, even more.
Next question.
From Courtney Gooden in Hollywood, California, and here on the panel, now that the voiceover field has become commoditized with good quality mics and home digital recording and editing, has competition via internet-based VO aggregators made earning a living in the VO field more difficult?
Courtney, did you want to add anything to that?
I'll hear their answers. I was just going to add that that I didn't get into the question is being SAG talent, being a member of a voiceover union, more lucrative, or does it not matter anymore these days?
Go ahead, Dan. Oh, you're muted, Dan.
Mute. There's a mute button. Yeah. Okay. There are so many people claiming to be voice actors out there right now. Can you make a living doing this if you're an A-list actor or maybe a B-list actor or something along those lines if you want to do commercials? But folks, this is not show business. Voice acting and voiceover is everything, as we've been talking about, all these different genres where you have audiobooks and corporate narration and medical narration and all these other things. It's not about being John Hamm on a commercial somewhere. It's about being able to create a daily stream of work in media to longer range narration to actually make a living at this, because unless you're living here in Hollywood and you have access to the producers and FaceTime with those types of people, it's very, very difficult. Not to say that you can't, but the people who are very successful at this are very heavy duty marketers, which I know Jodi will of course jump in on because she's excellent at this.
Go ahead, Jodi.
Well, I do agree that marketing is definitely paramount. You do need to be doing that. But I will say that there are also all sorts of new ways to use voiceovers these days. So as there become more, as more voiceover people end up entering the market, there are also more ways to use those voices. So all sorts of different products are coming on, apps are coming on, video games are making a ton of money. There's all sorts of other places that voiceovers can be used. And I'm going to tell you from personal experience that you can make a living in voiceover wherever you are. I'm north of Toronto, Canada. So, and I've been doing this 15 years and I'm doing just fine. So, right. I mean, it depends on what genres you're in, whether you're okay with doing a genre that you may not be all that thrilled with, but it makes you money to do the other genres that you really love doing. You know, you do have to make some, you know, it's like kind of be like waiting tables as an actor, right? Like, but if you still get to do voiceover, how bad can that be?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. Next question.
Next question from Harshid Trivedi in Daytona Beach, Florida, and here on our panel. What are the differences between voiceover work in audiobooks versus audio description, as AD is a script essentially?
Do any of you do audio description? Go ahead, Byron.
They're exceptionally different. Audiobooks, you're the director of the movie. You cast the characters, you choose the voices, and so on. And you can take as long, the Dr. Frankenfurter anticipate. But with audio description, you need to fit in a whole lot of information in the gaps between the dialogue of what's going on screen. So it's a completely different deal. It's as different as ADR, as in automatic dialogue replacement, or dubbing would be from being on stage or from doing a cartoon. The skills transfer, a lot of them, but the framing and the end point is very, very different. Although you can hear people who are terrible, and in fact, in some cases, they're using the current, quality of AI generated voices to try and do audio description because it's so cheap as compared in a lot of cases, and people hate it right now. So again, there's a lot of differences between audio description and audiobooks.
Next question.
Next question is coming in from Michael J. in New York City. Your recommendations for microphones on a budget for USB and audio interface connections.
George, I'll let you take the first crack at that.
What budget? We love talking budgets, don't we?
I mean, you can always sell your car. I mean,
so it's at the lowest low end. My favorite low end, and I'm not going to say there's not cheaper ones, but my favorite low end starter condenser studio mic would be the Audio-Technica AT2035. I find it an exceedingly good value. It's got a high pass filter switch, which is very helpful, as we talked about earlier. A shock mount. It just checks all the boxes. It's not noisy. And Dan and I both own the original called the 3035, and we've had it for years. And we always will be fond of it because it's just, we've had it forever and it's never, ever let us down. If you want to go USB, there's not a lot of good reasons to do USB unless you want ultra portability and the minimum amount of equipment. And there's just two that immediately come to mind. The Shure MV51, which Dan and I tested years ago, we found to be excellent as a USB mic. And a new player on the scene, if you want a tiny shotgun mic that weighs nothing, it's about this big, the whole thing. Rode has the Video Mic Go 2, which actually doubles as not only an on-camera mic, but it's also a USB mic, and with the right cable is a Lightning iPhone mic. So it's an amazing $100 USB microphone. So we can go way off the scale here, but that's a good starting point.
Just with our guests here that haven't been here before, I'm just curious, Byron, what mic are you using right now?
Because I have a medical syndrome called Swiss watchmaker syndrome, which means you ask me what time it is and I have to build the watch first.
Yeah, exactly.
The shortest answer to that question is, I used to work with every mic in the universe. I worked at Motown. We had access to a mic locker that would be worth zillions of dollars. when the Rode NT1 came out, well, originally I had the NT1A about 10 years ago.
Right.
I started with an MXL $100 microphone, which was not USB because there weren't things like that back then. And I then graduated to NT1 and was extremely happy with the NT1A that I had. And then I graduated to an NT1. And now, because I'm obsessive about this stuff, this is a Lewitt LCT 540S, which has a sub-audible noise floor because I do audiobooks and, extended length spoken word. This would be useless if I hadn't gone and pimped my ride and obsessed about my studio, which has a noise floor of minus 82 relative to my normal speech. This is nuts for any kind of music recording, vocals for music, or even most voiceover.
Right.
The spec for ACX and for most of the major publishers is minus 60. If you've got a noise floor of minus 60, you're good.
Yeah.
But that's the answer to your question.
Jodi, what are you using?
Right now, this is a USB mic that's called HyperX, and it's actually a gamer mic, and it changes color. And the reason I have it is because when I do video podcast interviews and stuff like that, it just looks better on camera. So I was like, why not? And I get to use my...
What do you use when you do voiceovers?
When I use voiceover in my booth, I have a 5x4 booth. I use my 416, Sennheiser 416, and I have a TLM 103 if I'm doing singing. So I don't use the 416 for singing.
Yeah, absolutely. Dan, what are you using? What are you using right now?
What I'm using right now is a custom built, what's called a K47 by MikeParts.com. It used to be an MXL 2001 that I bought in 2002, but we ripped the guts out of it and put some new, capacitor. I mean, it's a totally rebuilt interior, and there's nothing more fun than soldering something together and twisting it back together, putting it up there and turning it on, going, holy shoot, it works.
That's great.
But as you can hear, it sounds pretty good, and I like using it here at my desk. In my booth, I have a Sennheiser 416.
And Paul, what are you using?
I'm using a Neat King B, the original, when it was made by Gibson Guitars. They only made them for a couple of years. They were discontinued, and the price dropped significantly. So I picked up a pair, and I just love it. It's simple, but it works.
That's great. That's great. We're going to go. We got a couple more questions, and we'll probably go pretty quickly. Next question.
Kenny Hampton in Greenville, Illinois. For those who do long multi-day projects, how do you keep your voice sounding consistent from day to day? Does your mood affect your voice sound?
Byron, do you have as you're doing those?
It's the drugs, officer, actually. No. That's a really good question, and it can become an issue. And one of the answers is I try to record around the same time of day. If I, when I get up in the morning, I'm James Earl Jones. I'm down a couple of octaves. But it can be an issue on longer form projects. And there are times where, the thing that terrifies anybody who does audiobooks is that a sniffle? Was that a cough? Used to be cold. Now it's COVID. But, and so I actually got COVID 4 weeks ago and essentially couldn't work on an audiobook. I could do auditions for all kinds of other stuff for about 10 days. Yeah. So that's the answer to your question is it's, the serenity prayer and the wisdom to know the difference, what you can control and what you can't.
Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
Learn your voice and know when it's different. So like Byron was saying, if you wake up with a sore throat and your voice sounds different, you need to know that and either pause work or take a break until your voice comes back to how it was the day before. So just do enough work that you know what your voice sounds like, or hire someone to tell you what it sounds like and listen to it and know when you need to shift gears.
Next question.
Marty Atias from Maryland, USA. What percentage of clients expect a fully processed track, EQ'd, effects, etc., versus a dry track that they will process?
Go, George.
I have no idea. But I will say this, that if they don't ask for it dry, then they want it processed.
Yeah, I've always supplied it both ways. The same way that Bill was talking about. Go ahead, Byron.
Very simple. There is an inverse square relationship to the budget. The less money the client has, the more produced they want it, and they don't even know to ask for it. Right, they just expect it to be, I want it to sound like it does on the radio. You're doing a commercial.
Yeah.
Where's the music? Where's the, a sound effect?
In the same way, when we deliver footage to clients, there's log and then there's the one with the LUT. And a lot of times they just grab the one with the LUT and start going. Like it's the same kind of approach there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next question.
Dave Troutman from Edmonton, Canada. How much direction do you accept from a client after they've hired you?
Mitchell?
Just enough to get them out of the room as quickly as possible.
Everyone agrees. Yeah, there you go. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, I'll go the other way on this. I suggest live sessions with any client because it saves so much time. Because going back and forth through email, especially with the younger generations that hate the phone, like sometimes it's easier to pick up the phone and talk, but people don't answer the phone anymore. So instead of going back 5 times with different versions through email, I'd rather schedule the session, even with no charge to the client, get their feedback live, and then it's printed, and I don't have to do anything else after that.
Yeah, go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, I second that. If someone gives me a script and they're like, well, just record it and, we'll, and send it in. Oh, no, okay. That's not the way I want it done. I usually will insist, let's do a live session. And Paul's absolutely right that you get it right the first time and not going back and forth via text and email and stuff like that. What an incredible waste of time that is.
I've done 95% of my voiceover work remotely without anyone, from the early, 1992 is when I started doing it. And I found that I do better performance when I'm doing it live with the client. Just something comes out of me. I'm performing with them. I'm talking to them. I'm going back and forth, and I can do a solid performance without them, but I do a better performance with them there. When we're interacting, because there's something that for me at least comes out where I'm playing with it with them. Like I can do it this way, and I can do it this way, and I can do, and I can bounce around, and they can tell me what they want, and it's more playful. And I do mostly for character stuff. Go ahead, Bill.
A good director will almost always improve the results you get. A bad director will almost always make it much, much worse.
Exactly. Go ahead, Jodi. You were going to say something.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I do agree about live sessions. If you can get them, that's fantastic. If you can't, one of the easy ways for me to get a good reference on the tone they might want is to have them send me the music they're thinking of putting on the production. So if they send me the piece of music that they want to use, I can get to their tone immediately. It's just, and most musicians could probably do that in their sleep, really.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Byron?
There's 2 answers. If I can get someone on board to do live direction, especially for commercials and things like that, so you don't have to do them 3 or 4 times just because they go, well, could you do it a little bit more this way? That lack of iteration is fabulous. If I can do an audiobook with a live director, either remotely, as Paul was talking about, or, in the same facility, awesome. But there is language in my contract for doing audiobooks, particularly with independent authors, that says, and the same language is in ACX, which is a commercial marketplace, I submit 15 minutes. They don't have to be the first 15 minutes of the book. I can ask the author, what characters do you want to hear? I will give that to them. And once they approve that at the beginning of the project, they do not, I'm the director of the show. They can't come back and go, I don't like the New York accent. Can you do an Irish accent? Or he talks too fast. Can you slow him down? It's like, no. Once you approve the first 15, it's my show.
Yeah, interesting. Such a pleasure to have all of you here. Thank you so much for coming to hang out with us. It's just really, really amazing. I didn't know what to expect for today because I don't know a lot of you. Usually I used to book all of these, and so it was booked, and I was like, I hope these folks are good. You're amazing. Amazing conversation. Byron, Jodi, Dan, Paul, just thanks so much for joining us. It's just really, really fantastic to have you. And we've had great input. We've got a lot of voiceover artists in the thing that didn't get to talk as much because we wanted to make sure that we got the time with you, Mitchell and Bill and Courtney, Jeff, and George. And George is kind of in between where he's kind of a guest because he doesn't come very often, but he's been here and worked on a bunch of other projects. He just kind of lives in the ether there for us. Yeah, exactly. So, but incredible resource for us as well. So thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks to the producers who asked all the questions. Great questions, and just really kept the conversation going. Thanks to the panelists. Can't do this without you. And thanks to the incredible crew in the back end who makes this all happen. This is not just a person putting on a Zoom. It's a small village of people that get up every day to put this together. So anyway, thank you all for your contribution. And now we're going to jump into After Hours. We've got, I think David, I don't know, is David back yet? No, I think he's still, so I think David's back. So After Hours starting now. Now we're in the quiet room. We only whisper. So
Yeah, that was really great.
Yeah, that was a really good session.
Thanks. Byron, you were really good at keeping your answers short. I was impressed.
It's hard work. Thank you.
Is this called the parking lot?
You're talking too loud, though. We can't.
But a whisper.
Very whisper. Hit him on the mic if you're going to do that. It's like ASMR.
Guys,
think of it like a Marvel character called the Whisperer.
Yeah. The whisper. Yeah, so that'd be great. But hopefully we should do a whole one on audiobooks. Just do a whole hour on audiobooks. I think that would be worth it. Stay tuned for that. All right. Okay, now we're going to leave.
Oh, wait. Join us in After Hours.
Thanks, everybody. Great job.
If you want to go to After Hours, what do they do to go to After Hours? Just so for the uninitiated.
There's a link that we all have that's on the main Office Hours website. So if